Can everyone see me clearly? I don't want to move too much to be out of the camera shot. I'm not quite a dancer, but just let me know where I should stay. Can I please have my PowerPoint projected on the screen? Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. The 2 days have gone by so fast. I've listened to different presentations on women empowerment, perspective from different countries, and I feel quite inspired. My presentation time is short, but I'll first start with introducing who I am. I'm Naiara. My name is out here. You can read it. It's not an easy one. I'm from Basque country. I'm from Basque University, which is in the northern part of Spain. I'm a PhD candidate, and my research focuses on social, political, cultural studies. For example, how we as deaf women can participate through self-managed spaces. For instance, access through sign language, through women rights spaces, and using feminist theory. Firstly, my identities are deaf, a woman, a Caucasian from Europe and Spain. Just keep that in mind as we proceed with my presentation for further context. So you can understand the ideas that I share and link that to my country and my context. Next slide. I'll give an overview of my presentation looking at deaf women and their participation in their own context. Like, what does it mean when deaf women are included to participate? For example, what can be learned in those spaces? Next slide. Well, the presentation has a lot of text. However, I'll just go natural by saying what I'm going to say. What does it mean to be a deaf woman, and what are the experiences? Experiences of exclusion in women's spaces, on women networks, and also sometimes even within the deaf spaces. And we'll want to discuss the structural issues within. Perhaps you want to participate in some spaces, but you have multi-layered level of discrimination. For instance, when there's no access in terms of language, sign language interpretation, then your participation becomes difficult. Or sometimes in family circles, you feel burdened with the care responsibility, which is societally placed on the shoulders of women. So balancing between work and family care can weigh heavily on us as women. And that applies in different contexts. On the symbolic meaning on accessing the deaf space, sometimes you get to spaces, but you don't feel welcome. You don't feel you have the freedom to express yourself within those spaces. And there are moments you feel labeled as disruptive in those spaces. Sometimes you feel fear. And there's different ways of being oppressed, not having your space to explore. But it's important to have formal spaces that women can explore. However, deaf women, apart from the mainstream spaces, they'll need their own spaces that they can freely navigate. I'll explain better in the next slide. We're going to look at the power relation, and we are going to look at the critical theory of domination, identifying who is not there, who is not participating, who is not represented. We need to consider that. Perhaps in your country you have specific groups. However, when you're in that group, you don't feel some sense of belonging in that group. And perhaps it's because of traditional participatory practices that are oppressive. Next slide, please. Let us speak of self-organized spaces. This is space that are alternative to traditional power structures. There is no feeling of participatory inequality. People feel equal, feel that they're in a space that they can engage equally, flexible, with different intersectionality that can be displayed without fear of judgment. The point is that there is no deaf woman feels left out in this space. Next slide. The next slide will show an example of self-organized group in Spain. This is a women group. It's not an association per se, but it's a self-organized women group. This was as a result of a feeling that as deaf women, we don't have our own safe space, where we had a 4-day meeting with discussions and workshop with different activities, sharing food, sharing accommodation. And we decided that we are going to have feedback and felt that this is an interesting topic linking to feminism and self-organized spaces. We didn't have formal structures in this. There was more feeling of equality and feeling of having a shared space, establishing networks and processes. And this was the first time I had access to data for my research. A footnote is that my research is still continuing in different spaces in Spain, and I used that opportunity to engage with women in those self-organized spaces so that we can come together in safe spaces and have detailed discussions. For instance, the experiencing of deaf women when they are pregnant and access to healthcare services. It was a space that was free for women to discuss what they wanted to discuss. Next slide. I want to provide some outcomes of my research, what it shows. It showed that there's a structural barrier showing how deaf women looks at feminism and how they experience it. And first issue is that 12% reported that they attend hearing events. However, they feel it's not accessible, so they don't belong there. Maybe there's no interpreter, or it's not to the standard that they'll access. So different feminist movements feel inaccessible to deaf women. We also asked a question, how do you learn about feminism? And 70% learn with their friends. So this person can be a hearing or deaf, but someone who knows sign language. So they learn that in sign language. And other deaf women say that they enter institution with interpreter, and that is a safe space where they can access feminist information. As you can see on the research, 20% reported that they were illiterate and learning could not take place without the skill of reading. And we had 60% accessing that through comics and movies and series, and 80% through social medias, be it Instagram, TikTok, etc. They learn more from social media. And more hearing people access these platforms and learn from these different platforms. So we as deaf women, we also need to access other spaces to be able to understand and have discussions about what is important. For instance, what we are doing here as we engage on feminism. Next slide, please. Please pull the slide to my side. Thank you. 70% of deaf feminism is more practical and requiring real spaces, which is different to mainstream feminism that is too theoretical. Because the question was, do you think deaf feminism exists? So 70% of those reported thought that there was more of hearing feminism that was too theoretical for them to access. It doesn't have the deaf life experiences, so they feel that it's more far and does not speak to their practical everyday life as deaf women. And next, 30% of the participants were satisfied with the Deaf Association who work on women's rights because information is accessible. However, the issue was lack of activism. And 80% of them preferred to have both spaces, meaning the mainstream spaces and also the option of having a deaf spaces. A specific space that is only meant for deaf women. And having these two happening simultaneously. For example, it's, when you're driving a car in a two-way traffic, so you can drive faster or you can drive slowly. So these are the two vehicles to achieve satisfaction depending on your preference. Lastly, I'll want to speak about LGBT plus issues, motherhood and marriage, as well as sexual education. Firstly, on the issue of LGBT plus, most say that it feels more aligned to feminism, the identities of exclusion. But in feminism, there's some kind of grounding. And on the issue of motherhood, feeling of where do I go? But there's a feeling of a safer space within feminism. There's more information about being a woman, about being pregnant. And you can't separate this identity. It's part of the facet of who you are. And you cannot separate this different identity. It's important you recognize all these identities as an LGBT plus, a mother, or if you're married, you have responsibilities as a mother, and you have your professional work, and there's a personal life. So you need to ask yourself, how do you fit into the feminism structure? And lastly, sexual education. What is sexual education? I'm a woman. I want to know more about my body, my biology. Feminism has that, which provides a learning opportunity about sexual education. Next slide, please. Well, time is not on my side. And just in conclusion, next slide. Recognition. One, we need to recognize that gender and deaf identities are as power relations and rethinking politics for actual people. We can't say men and women are equal. We haven't reached that stage yet. Women do experience inequalities, and we need to have recognitions of the issues that are existing at hand. We know we have power relation issues. It's same in the general community where we have power dynamics. Please, I saw someone who asked a question. Yeah, for me that links to power dynamics, about equalities. What is feminism? Do we as women raise to the standards of men, or do we ask men to match our standard of equality? How do we share power? That is always now the struggle for power. So most men do have privilege. For example, how can we step aside from our privileges and provide opportunity for women to experience equality? And secondly, how can we relearn how to be together, recognize diversity and equalities from different backgrounds and situations? When the president of WFD says, welcome everyone here, I want to ask deaf community, why are we really here? What do we really want? We need to reevaluate and see on how we can improve the situation to achieve equality. Next slide. Can you please increase the size of the screen? Again, back to the question. Who is here? Who is in this space? We have associations, we have women, we have different platforms. And who is missing? Who needs to be invited? And do you have a space that deaf women feels secure, feel empowered? And then how can we recognize conflict? When two people come, they'll definitely not always agree. We have different experiences, different needs. That is the diversity of how life is. However, we need to understand how we can resolve this conflict. Next slide. This slide focuses on building. And I think we are all here towards the same goal, building our communities to provide safe spaces and share tools to help each others, to have peer learning, to have networks that will result to stronger spaces. As deaf women, we know our struggles. We have our own lived experiences of being oppressed and being silent about it. And we have learned from that experience and we understand that. And from that, we can build spaces of growth. Next slide. I want to thank you. Thank you. Perhaps we have time for question. I'm not sure if we have, but I'll be around for the rest of the week. We can engage and have discussion about this topic anytime. Thank you again for your attention.